Hello, I'm Dallas Grove for the Township of Ocean Historical Museum. Welcome to another edition of Hometown Histories, part of our mission to preserve the past for the future. Today, on a mild afternoon in mid-December 2015, Marie Siciliano, a longtime resident, active in the community, and a career real estate professional, recalls the changes she has seen as the town has grown and adapted. Marie is joined today by her son, Ocean Township Mayor Chris Siciliano.
So, Marie.
Yeah.
Marie Siciliano.
That's it.
So tell me how a nice Irish girl got such a prominent Italian name.
Well, it's a long story. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and during the Depression. And I grew up during the Depression, and the war started while I was still young. And I went to school in St. Louis, and I actually brought a picture of myself as a freshman with one of my friends. Mm-hmm. And I saw her about 2 years ago, and we took a picture again. So
I saw that.
Was
yeah,
kind of
nice shots that you had.
Kind of interesting to have a memory of somebody that's back in St. Louis. But then let's see what happened.
Well, tell me about your folks. Tell me about your parents. So you're from the Midwest. St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, the middle of the United States. Well, Kansas really is, but we are almost dead center.
What'd your dad do?
My dad was a policeman, and his father was a policeman. Mm-hmm. And my mother was, when she was young, she was given up to an orphanage by her parents. At that time, they didn't have Social Security. They probably had the poorhouse, or I don't know what they had, but whatever it was, she was given up for adoption, and she was adopted by German people who had a farm, and she was put on an orphan train, and this orphan train would stop at different stops, and these
farmers,
prearranged farmers or families would stop and pick up the child that they were taking home.
Wow.
So she was about 13 at that time to work on the farm, and she worked very hard. She told us how she scrubbed the floor with lye soap. They made soap themselves out of lye and pig fat, and that was their soap. And when she was about 17 or 18, she ran away from there because she was so mistreated. And she hid in a cart from some, I think it was a milkman that came to deliver or pick up the milk. And he hid her in the cart, and he took her into St. Louis, and she stayed there. Somebody there knew that she was being mistreated, and they said, if you can ever get away, come and we'll take care of you. So she stayed there in St. Louis, and then she met my father, who was a policeman, and then she went on to being married and so on.
Wow.
And then I was the youngest of 6 siblings, and 6 brothers and sisters. I had 2 sisters and 3 brothers. And during the war, my brothers went into the service, and during the Depression, well, first we had the Depression, and things were bad because the banks broke in 1929, and my mother was telling me how they stood in line and waited for their money, and they had a cutoff thing, and she was one of the cutoffs, so she didn't get her money.
Just like in the movies when they had a run on the bank, right?
That's exactly what it was, yes. And some of those movies are made for real life.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes, in fact, your father worked in one that, later on in the story, your father worked in one that became a movie.
Wow.
And so, let's see, we moved on to the war, and during the war, because it was St. Louis, they built a lot of war plants, and they manufactured airplanes and whatever, but the war brought on more economy because the
Jobs.
people had jobs. My sisters got jobs. They worked on the draft board as secretaries or whatever. And my brothers all went into the service.
So you were too young to participate, but your sisters all being old and your brothers
Yes.
got involved, and it helped the family out, I guess.
It did help the family out. They had allotment checks, and that helped the family out. And then we went, well, during the war, things were rationed. We didn't get nice commodities like people up here did, because we were sort of in the center of the United States, and
Let's
we didn't
face
have.
it, you didn't have the connections that the folks back east had.
Well, that might have been so, but we didn't have the seaports and things for
Right.
them to, have easy access to the ships and things. So we had rationing for leather, for sugar, for coffee. We had to have something called postum. Butter was rationed. You had to mix it with a little tube of something and colored it. It was called oleo. And I don't know. We had a hard time during the war as to commodities.
And
And
so,
then things prospered.
so people coped, though, during the Depression and during the war, early times. People still were able to cope with that. It's amazing that they came through all that, and
Yeah,
everybody was in it together.
there was a lot of inner strength in the Midwest. People were strong and strong-spirited. So we walked a lot, too. We walked to trolleys. We took streetcars. I had to take 2 streetcars to get downtown to a job. It took us about as much time to get from my house in the suburbs, which was like Oakhurst, a simple spot, to downtown St. Louis as it would be to take the train from here to New York.
Wow.
So then I started, what happened? I went to high school there, graduated, and got a job downtown in a bank. And one night I met, we were staying late for supper after hours at the bank, and there was an Air Force base across the river. We were right on the riverfront by where the arch is now. It wasn't there then. And all these flyboys came in. Your father was
Dad
one of
in
them.
the Air Force, right?
Yeah, the Air Force, and they started talking to all the girls that were eating supper at the bank and so on and so forth, and so a romance started. And then I brought him home, and then the war started.
Well, which war now? There's got to be a cultural shock now. Here's this young Italian boy from the east,
That was the
looked
war.
like Frankie Valli, and here you are, a Midwest girl, Irish descent, right? You folks must have loved it. So tell us about that.
Well, they didn't really love it,
Oh,
and they
I was
didn't.
wrong.
They didn't think that was such a good idea to go with this foreign boy, and but I still dated him, and
So without offending the rest of the Italian culture, did they really think he was in the mafia? Let's face it.
no, they
No.
didn't think it was in the mouth, but they thought he came from close to New York, and to them that was all mafia.
Okay.
That was just a bad scene, and that wasn't what we were used to. So when we talked about it, they said, it looked like you're getting serious. When's he leaving? And I said, well, he's leaving in the fall. And they said, well, tell him goodbye. And I said, well, we thought maybe we could get married. No.
How old were you?
I was 18, he was 19.
Okay.
And so they said, no, that's impossible. You can't marry an Italian. You can't marry. No. So we decided that it was another couple that was, that we had met that night. At,
Military guy also?
military. He was a
Air
military
Force.
fellow. He had met a girl in St. Louis, and we talked about, in St. Louis you had to have your marriage license posted in the paper for 3 times.
Oh, had to have it announced. Okay.
Yeah, not announced, but it was posted in the paper
Gotcha.
if you applied for a marriage license. And of course you had to be 21, or 18 for the girls and boys had to be 21. Well, Gavin wasn't 21. So we said, how are we going to overcome this? And we talked, and somebody said, we went to Pocahontas, Arkansas, and we got married, and you only have to be 15. So we said that would be a good idea. So one night Gavin and the other couple and my sister and her husband went to Pocahontas, Arkansas. And we traveled on nice roads in Missouri, but you knew you hit Arkansas when the road stopped. And it was just all bumpy lanes. But there was a truck in front of us, and it had a bunch of pigs in it. And it was a farmer taking his hogs to market.
Oh boy.
And we pulled up in front of the courthouse in Pocahontas, and we got out, and the farmer got out, and he was the justice of the peace.
Oh boy. Okay.
And he married us, and 15 couples at the same time. So we drove back home to St. Louis and told our families, and they had a fit. And my father wouldn't talk to my sister for months because she went with us, but they decided that, well, since you did this dire thing, then you have to make it right. So they sent us back over to the Air Force Base, and we had to get married by the Catholic chaplain that was at the Air Force Base, and then we were married. So then we left and we came up here.
And did you have to do it one more time here for his folks?
Well, no, when we did get up here, his family was kind. Well, they weren't happy, but they sort of melted down a little bit, and they did give us a party.
So, well, let me ask you this. We know what the Missourians thought of the Eastern boy. What did the Eastern folks think of the Missouri girl? Were you embraced?
No.
Oh.
Oh, no. First of all, I was too tall. They were all midgets. And I had big feet. They would ask me, what size shoe you wear?
No, these are his aunts and sisters? And
aunts and uncles, yeah.
I loved it.
And then, they were not happy. They said, oh, she came from Jesse James territory. They thought Missouri was Jesse James. And I said, oh, but I met Jesse James because we had, in the middle of Missouri, down at Merrimack Caverns, we had a resort area. And they had an old man in a bed, and they said he was Jesse James, and they charged you $1 to go in and say hello to Jesse James, and he gave you a photo.
So you didn't disappoint. You let them know you actually knew.
And I told them I met Jesse James. Well, they all made fun of me because they knew Jesse James got shot and killed or something, and I believe that story that was Jesse James. I saw it. I didn't know, so I was naive in a lot of things, and they sort of picked up on it, and I thought, boy, what a country bumpkin this is.
And very direct people, I presume, right?
Very direct, very
with
direct.
Big opinions.
Big opinions, and they spoke out, and not only that, there were a lot of aunts and uncles, and they spoke out. So you were sort of a subordinate to...
Well, you were taking their first baby boy here.
Absolutely.
That was that. Well, so let me go back to one little story that was shared when we were younger. We always got a kick out of it. Your sisters thought they would do something nice for Gavin while he was out there. And they thought they would make him a nice Italian meal.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us how that went.
Well, my sisters were excellent cooks, country style. If you went to the Cracker Barrel, they could have got a job there very easily. But in a pizzeria, they wouldn't have made it. So they made dinner for him, and the sauce took less time to cook than the pasta.
Okay, that
and
could have been
it was ketchup and water or whatever you be. And when Gavin looked at it, he said, I can't eat that. And they said, why not? We cooked it special. And he said, I can't eat. He was direct too. So wasn't a happy
Well,
meal.
the story I have is that while they were cooking and he saw what they were making, when they turned around, all they saw were the curtains flapping in the breeze. Is that right? Something like that. But he actually told them what he thought of it.
He told them.
So you come here, Marie, and you got married. You came back here, and then Dad was in the service.
He was in the service, and he got shipped to Maine. Mm-hmm. We went to Maine, and we got settled a little bit, and he got orders to go to Japan. So back home we came. I came back here, and he went to Japan, and I stayed here for a couple of weeks with his family.
All those nice aunts that were eyeing you up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't like me any better for that visitor. But I persevered because I was only 18. I was dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't know
Not dumb, you were a kid.
Yeah, I didn't know any better. So I stayed here, and then I went back home to St. Louis. And then he came back, and we went back to Maine, and he got shipped back again.
Oh, boy.
So he went to Japan twice. He was a radio man.
Where are we at with children at this point?
So at this
Anything
point,
happening?
we had one child. I had one child, and then we went back to Maine, and I got pregnant with your brother Gavin. So I did have one offspring in the Army hospital, which was, they thought it was a MASH unit, I guess, out in the field or something. They threw you right, because when I was in St. Louis, I stayed in the hospital 10 days. When I was in the Army house or the Air Force hospital, I was there 3, in and out. And then
HMOs in the early days, huh?
and then you walk down to get your own food. I didn't know I wanted to be waited on. I was in bed, but that was it.
So 2 children while Dad served, right?
And then, yeah, I had the 2 children. And then we got out, we came back here, and we lived with my in-laws for a while.
Now, was this Asbury Park?
Asbury Park,
No, 1207? That was the address?
1207 4th Avenue, yep. And then we got an apartment in what is now Washington Village, which
Very
is
nice
the
place.
height of the combat section in these days.
But then it wasn't. It was
it was government housing,
Right.
and it was beautiful. It was right behind the boys' club,
had a pool.
and we belonged to the boys' club, and it was really very nice living. Apartments were nice. They had caretaker, groundsmen and things. But
So you had several more children while there.
I had,
Right.
yes, I had 2 more children while we were there, and then we moved to Oakhurst.
Well, let me ask you a question. This is a good one. Here you are, Asbury Park, had everything. It had movies, had downtown, had shopping, had boardwalk, had parks, Monte Carlo pool. I remember all these things. What in the world compelled you to move from all that to beautiful Oakhurst?
Well, we moved to beautiful Oakhurst because it was more of a farmland here, and nothing was here, and the houses were inexpensive. A lot of them were homes that were given to people for subscription to the Star Ledger. They weren't given the home; they were given the plot of ground,
sure.
and they built these little summer houses on them. And then the summer houses got extended.
They evolved into
And-
year-round
And
residences.
yes, and they got, central heating and whatever, but that
So
was.
basically, you couldn't afford a house in Asbury Park
Absolutely
in
not, no,
1958.
we couldn't afford those sidewalks
Yeah,
and
all the
porches
nice-
and things like that, so we moved to the country.
So country it was, right? So tell us about
It was
Ocean
the country.
Township, 1958.
Well, in 1958, it had no sidewalks,
Okay.
no sewers. We had septic tanks, and they were always, becoming a problem, but eventually we did get sewers. And then, at that time, the Brar homes were being built in Wanamassa, and the GIs that were coming back were able to buy with the GI Bill of Rights and, no down payment and things. So that was good, but we were already established at where we were, so we stayed where we were. And we lived by Playa Park, and that was called Deal Test Site at the
Yeah.
time, and it was all fenced off.
Active face, right?
I don't know if it was active. I think there was a house there and sort of a station, and I think they first shot something to the moon from there.
Yeah, one of the satellites.
Satellite.
But they actually
yes.
had, I recall, as a child, they had armed guards there at the gates,
Oh, yes,
making sure the little rascals didn't get in there.
but they got in.
we got in. We got in.
Yeah.
They couldn't hold us back.
No, they couldn't. The fences didn't. They weren't electrified, so they got in. And
I'll say this, as a child, I remember Dad sharing this story that he was really concerned moving to Ocean and Oakhurst, because as you said, it was rural and farmland, and moving from Asbury, that had everything for us to that. And then when we moved there, we got lucky, because we moved in with the 6, 7 kids. And then down the street, the folks at Clayton's had 8. The Achuras were there, they had 4. Then the Lowies move in, they have, all of a sudden for us, it was an instant street.
yep,
Right? And all we had to do was nail a hoop to a tree out in the street. We were good to go.
yep. It was a dead end street, and you had a real good time there. And there was a brook. It was called Schnell's Lake, and it was back through the woods a little bit, and which are now not right now. It's nice houses there, but back then the kids played there all the time. You fished, and you changed the whole ecology of the
Sure.
the
We
system.
changed it pretty good. We built forts and everything. We
Oh,
dammed
yes.
up that brook all the time. Long before Poplar Village was there and got flooded, we already created our own floods.
You did. You made the floods. Yeah.
Had fun doing
They
it.
scared the beavers and everything else. And then kids started school. The old Oakhurst School was in session there, and it's now where the Chamber of Commerce and the Board of Education is. And
So this is before the high school wasn't even built then?
high school wasn't built till later. Yeah,
Yes.
they went to school there, and then they were the first. When they went to Dow Avenue, I think they were the first class that got into Dow Avenue. Your
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah, that was late 50s it was
Yeah.
built, that's right.
So he went to Dow Avenue, which was a very nice school and a little progressive. And
How about those nice teachers at Oakhurst School?
Oakhurst, there were a lot of older teachers that had never gotten married. I think way back, I think there was sort of a thing where the teachers shouldn't be married. They had more, I don't know, whatever.
More focus on the children if
Yeah,
they
more
were?
focused. And by the time our kids got there, they just weren't ready for that many. And
You overwhelmed them, Marie, with all of us.
I know, and every September I think I had the new baby, and one of you would go to school and spout off, "We got a new brother."
They must have loved that.
Yeah, I don't think they liked it too well, but they were a little cantankerous, those older teachers. But it was John Rast became the principal there in around 1958, 1959, and he was a little progressive, so he sort of liked
Young
things
guy
up.
trying to maybe change things a little bit.
Yeah, he was trying to,
bring it more into the 60s.
keep it even a little bit. But Dow Avenue was progressive and nice. And, well, let's see. What else did we do after
Well,
that?
so when you moved here, and as we were growing up, no parks.
No parks.
No pool club.
No pool club.
No senior center. None of the amenities that it really has today. So tell us about how that all evolved. I mean, I guess there had to be town meetings, and they started deciding, hey, we need some of these to accommodate the growing families and families migrating from Lone Branch, Asbury Park, etc.
They did have, the one thing they did have in the early the early 60s was down where the firehouse is, that's Memorial Drive.
Mhm.
That was the park that and the kids played Pop Warner football
Sure, I
there.
remember the early days.
Yeah, and that was the little park that we had, and the little building that was there. And then I don't think nothing was built on West Park Avenue at that time. I think that was a farm, and it was can't think of the name of the people that had it, but it was a big farmland, and they had produce they would sell along the road too.
How about Highway 35? Before the divider even, right?
No divider, no. It was just Highway 35, and they had a few bars and restaurants along the way. One of them was Harry's Bar and Grill, which is now, I think, Nino Jr.
Oh, well, it's Nino's Pizzeria, Coal Fire?
Yes.
That one? Okay.
I think it was up in that direction. And it was kind of a rowdy place, and I think it was more of a men's bar. Ladies didn't go. And on Monmouth Road was another bar, Oakhurst Bar, and ladies didn't go in there, but I smoked. So I went in and bought cigarettes from the machines, and they were like, "Oh, ladies intruding in here," you know. But
What were you doing there?
we didn't have the 7-Eleven.
Right,
so.
you didn't have all those convenience stores.
No.
But you did have some nice hometown little stores that you can get
We
things
did.
at,
We
right?
had on the corner of Monmouth Road and Roosevelt, we had Valentino's Market, and it was run by the Valentino family with very nice people.
So
and
that's where the kosher meat market is now. For
That's where the
reference, right?
kosher meat market is. And
And then across the street, the gas station, what was there?
there was Harry Welsh's grocery
remember.
store, a little grocery store, and there was no liquor store at the time. But I would walk down to Valentino's Market and park the baby carriage there and get the bus to Asbury Park if I need to go to Asbury
Go
Park
shopping
or
or
something.
do anything.
Right.
Okay.
And then
The town grew up around you.
everything began growing. And on the corner of Grant Avenue and Monmouth Road was an old farmhouse, and I think Loomis lived there. And I don't know how long she lived there, but she was old. And she was telling me the story that it used to be the Underground Railroad
Oh,
For
wow.
the Negroes would come up from the south and be harbored or filtered through
Yeah.
through whatever association it was to get settled.
Wow. So it's an old place there.
Yes,
Yeah, I remember
yes, it's
seeing
a
it.
historical place, building, yes.
Huh.
And let's see, what else was?
Well, how about Wayside back in the day? I mean, there was really nothing up there.
Wayside,
Right?
it wasn't there. The only thing that was there was Cold Indian Springs, Cold Indian Springs.
The well, I guess, is
It
there?
was Cold Indian Spring. It wasn't the park. It wasn't called Park. It was called Cold Indian Springs, and it was a swimming pool or
Yeah, swimming hole.
swimming hole, and the kids would go there to swim.
Yeah, they had somebody there giving lessons and everything,
Yes,
right?
yes, that was the swimming spot. And for the more formal lessons, we would go into the YMCA in Asbury Park, and
I remember a guy would just throw us in the pool,
I
and
think it
then
was Howard
that's how
Rowe
we started.
at the time would give swimming lessons.
Yeah.
Yep,
I recall.
yeah.
So Wayside got built up. No apartments at that time in Ocean either.
No.
None of the apartment
And
built that's here
I
now.
can't remember
wasn't
what
there.
was built first. Probably Middlebrook was
Yeah.
probably built.
Okay.
Middlebrook, and across the street from Middlebrook was called the Lavender Bull. It was like a drive-through restaurant.
Really?
Yeah.
That was on the corner of 35 and Deal Road?
Yeah. And then I can't remember when the others evolved. The other.
So then you got involved. You couldn't, with all those children, you had 7 now when you here. By 1962, you have 7 children. You couldn't work in the early
No, I
days.
couldn't work, but
You got involved in the town?
I got involved. I did a lot of volunteer work just with the sports programs that
Little
you
League
fellows
and
were
Pop
in.
Warner.
Right, yeah, Little League, Pop Warner,
Scouts?
and Scouts. And you guys didn't last too long in the Scouts. I don't know
No,
why.
they showed us how to start a fire, and that was the end of that.
Yeah,
We
we had
were
to get
done.
out of that. What else did we do? Oh, and then in the was it the 70s? Jim Howard came to become the congressman,
Yeah.
and they had a club called the Housewives for Howard, and we would meet early in the morning and meet the train and give out coffee and donuts.
Oh.
This was during an election time,
Yeah.
so that was an
Helped him
interesting.
campaign.
Yeah, it was a campaign.
Now, he was a
thing.
classmate of Dad's, right? Asbury Park?
I think he was in Asbury Park, but he might have been a little bit older.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was really a fine fellow, and he was a good congressman.
So back then, both clubs were pretty strong back in the day. The Republican Club, the Democratic Club,
Yeah.
and various things. Because I remember having picnics where the manor is now, on Poplar Road behind the old Gimbel Estate,
Yes,
which is Copper Gables, right?
yes, yes. And we had someone there would have barbecues. He would bring his own setup and everything, and do the barbecues. Yeah, that was.
I remember the watermelon. That's what
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, and let's see what happened after that. Oh, after that, well, after I think your younger brother Randy got into school, I got my real estate license, and I went to work down on Monmouth Road with this 2 women that I knew, and it's still, the building is still there. It was an old stagecoach
Wow.
stop at one time,
And that's right at West Park in Monmouth.
Yeah.
Right
right next to the 7-Eleven. It was called Old Town Realty, and because the town was called Old Town at the time.
Oh, Oakhurst was, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, way back.
Way back.
And across the street was Eddie White's Market, and that's where the big sign says Rosano's, which became an Italian market after. But then it was Eddie White's Market, and across from that was the Oakhurst Bar, and next to that was the post office.
Right.
The Red House was the post office.
And the firehouse, I remember going there, Halloween and
I
whatnot.
think-
They'd had events there,
yeah,
right on Monmouth Road.
I think the firehouse was there
Yeah.
too.
I think they even had 1 truck at the time.
They might have.
But they would open it up, and as kids, we'd go in there, we'd bob for apples and, grab all the candy we could, of course.
Of course, and well, that's about it. Around 1980, we opened our own office, Gavin and I, on the corner of Monmouth Road and Roosevelt, in a little tiny place. I think it says Sylvia's Gifts now, And we started there, and then later on we were able to buy out Old Town, and we stayed there until we moved to the back to Johnny Palantonio had a gas station there where the Santander Bank
yeah.
is. And he cleared that off, and he
that little
built
strip
a office complex in the back.
So real estate back in the day, mostly you were selling a lot of the VA, FHA,
VA and
then one massa
FHA.
homes to
Yeah.
these.
Yep. We were
First
able
time,
to, the fellows were coming back from the various service stints, and they were given the opportunity to buy with VA no down.
Awesome.
So it was a lot of paperwork, but it was worth
Kept you
it.
busy.
Kept us busy, and it really kept us in business because each one that was able to get a house, because before that, everybody had to have a down payment. They were so appreciative, they would send their friends.
Wow.
And kept us.
And it grew and it grew.
It grew.
That
Yeah.
was great. Well, Tim and I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
we've taken over.
Now you have it.
But now, so Marie, so you saw the town go through all those changes. So anything that you think was the most significant, or anything that surprises you the most, or tell me.
No, I really, as the town was growing, I was getting busy. I was doing things. I was out of the house. When I was in the house, when you fellows were young, I had time to look around and see what wasn't here. But when it got to be here, and you were all a little bit, you were growing and things. I can't remember what was the most significant thing that happened.
So this very place that we're here now today, the Historical Museum, was an older home. I guess still folks were living in it back in the day. It was up on the corner and moved to this site. So this was a working farm even back in the day.
Yes, and I'm keep trying to think of the name of the farm, but there was a farm. Yes, there was a farm here, and
So we went from a town, when you moved in the late 50s, of a population of probably 10,000. We've tripled in size, added a high school, several intermediate schools, and Wayside has grown into homes.
And there's
suburban
streets in
neighborhood.
Wayside that they're still building, and I
Still
don't know
building.
the streets. But then we did know everything, and we had, I just can't remember what was in town at the time, but the Methodist Church was always there. Monmouth Road just had about 6 buildings. That was a school, the church, the tavern,
Yeah.
and our office. And there was nothing further down. The only thing that was further down was Millar Animal Hospital.
Oh, that's
And then they had the Copper Kettle was another building that was there, and it was a little antique store, and that is gone, and it's now in a complex, physicians complex back there. And Millar was the animal doctor where the hospital is now, and he had a graveyard and he buried the animals right there. And I think when he sold, people fussed about
They did, yeah.
getting their animal
Exhumed.
or whatever, and I'm not quite sure how it ever got resolved or if it ever did, but there might be
Another story there.
a little pug underneath that.
Yeah. So fascinating stuff, from a town that had dirt roads, no sewer system, no schools,
It grew,
to a
Beautiful
thriving community that people really are
Beautiful
clamoring
town.
to get into,
right,
right?
yes.
And all because folks like you. Now, you also helped, were very instrumental in bringing back the Memorial Day Parade. Tell us about
Well,
that.
the memorial. Well, Dallas was helpful in that because she and Marge Ellison, I think, had been instrumental in running it for many years, and then it stopped. And then I said, "Gee, maybe we could do it again." At that time, we had just joined the Professional Businessmen's Association, and that became the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh,
And
they just celebrated their 30th, so it goes
Right.
back that far.
Yes, yes. We'd like to, start up the parade. So Dallas gave me a lot of
The old playbook, I guess.
yes, how to do. And I did get a book from the library on how to run a parade, and took some notes from that. And
Really
we did get it
grassroots.
started. we advertised for a committee, and we did get a real nice committee, and we worked on it all year on fundraising so we could pay the bands and things like that. And that was very nice. And the chamber became the sponsor of the parade at that time.
Great. Well, you're glad to hear that we're bringing it back again now in 2016.
Great.
Because it's been rested for a while for
Great.
budgetary reasons, but so keep that tradition going, because I remember that as a child in the early 60s,
Oh,
having that parade. It was a lot of fun having that go down Monmouth Road.
it was
And
fun.
then
We
terminate
built
at the
floats.
park.
Chris was good on building floats.
I
He
love
built
building
some
the
nice
floats. That was fun.
And yeah, we had, it was a big production at the time. And then we would have to gather some of the money for it, we would have the St. Patrick's Day dinner, and that would be funds. And the funds would go toward, paying the
For the
bands and the floats and the mummers and the out-of-town people that we use.
Well, that system's still in place. We're still doing that again today.
Still doing that.
It still
Great.
works, right? There's
Sounds
an old
good.
saying, don't fix what ain't broken, right?
That's right.
We're going to continue with that. Well, these are great stories, Marie. Anything that you have that you want to say to our future generations or your grandchildren that are here now, and encouraging words to stay here in Ocean and grow their own families?
Well, most of my children did stay right here, as you know, here in town. One of them went away to school and stayed where he, met his wife, and just stayed in another country. But he missed that ocean, and he would come back periodically just to see that ocean and everybody else that was here. But I think that, and also through our years, we had started some family traditions of having birthday Sunday, and we would have everybody over that had a birthday in that month. And of course, there was a birthday every month, so we had that, and we would have everyone over for Easter dinner, everyone over for Thanksgiving dinner, everyone over for Christmas dinner,
I
or
remember.
Christmas Eve. And now you fellas are taking over those
We had to
events.
take it out of your hands, Marie.
Yes.
It was too much.
And we had the family reunion when we had, just sometimes it was up to 100 people that were there, the old aunts and uncles.
Yeah,
and,
good times catching up.
connected. And I kept albums on everything. And the only thing I could say to the future now is I think your children and future children should keep records of things. I took a course in genealogy at, I'm trying to think of the name, I'm so sorry, I'm getting,
Macon, maybe?
no, the college,
Brookdale.
Brookdale, there you go. I took a course in genealogy at Brookdale, and I did do a big story on the Italian side and the Irish side. And we have shipping from the immigration port
Yeah.
and things when they came over, so it's very good. And I do hope that your kids and the future kids would keep up some of these records and traditions of the family and of the town.
Yeah, we hope so too, because that's really what tells a story. And that's how we even get this segment of Hometown Stories, is folks continuing that tradition. So, well, thanks for the interview, Mother. I'll call you Mother now because we're going to go off tape. And it was good stuff, and I never get tired of hearing the stories, even though I've been asking you since I was 5.
I know.
The same stories, but they never grow old on us. So thank you for that.
Okay. Oh, pleasure.
Now,
Yes, we were 15 there. Yep,
that's great. That's over here somewhere.
that's here.
Here she is now. Where did you run into her at again?
St. Louis.
Oh, when you went out on a visit?
Yep,
She remembered you from all those years ago?
absolutely. Who could forget me?
I don't know. Who knows? Plenty. There's you and your sisters.
Oh, yeah.
That was good. That was a good shot. And they're all still around.
They are. They're
So
still
don't complain when you have an ailment. You have sisters in their 90s.
I have a sister that's
Never hear a poop
90.
from 'em.
I have one that's 94, and they are still alive and bossing me around.
Marie.